So Douglas Wilson and Dr. Joe Rigney were on a debate with T. Russell Hunter and John Speed on the Bible Dingers channel about a month ago. And they that is, Dr. Joe Rigney and Douglas Wilson, made the case that we can draw a line of comparison between abortion and divorce in the Old Testament, saying it is acceptable for us to regulate abortion in the modern day under our modern set of circumstances because God likewise regulated divorce in the Old Testament. In other words, both of these are things that God hates. Both of them make the fatherless prey, according to them. And therefore, because it was not iniquitous for God to decree that it was permissible in the Old Testament, that it is not iniquitous for us to decree regulations of abortion on the way to its abolition. I felt like there were two really easy points to make in contradiction to this that didn't get made and which I want to make here. Firstly, just because God does something doesn't mean we have the right to do it too. Yes, we are to be imitators of Christ. I understand that. But to apply that to God passed this particular law, therefore we can pass this other law, it doesn't follow. If God says, don't pass this kind of law, then it doesn't matter even if God did pass that same kind of law at some point in the past. It does not follow that because God did it, we are also allowed to do it. But even if that were the case, this still doesn't work. Here's why. Though they appealed to Matthew 19, where Jesus talks about it being for the hardness of men's hearts, one, we have to know whether or not there's any comparison between the modern love of this evil of abortion and the historical hardness of men's hearts with regards to divorce. What even did it mean for men's hearts to be so hard that this was necessary? Well, when Jesus says this, he compares it to as it was in the beginning. In other words, when God instituted marriage, it was an eternal covenant between two sinless people. And now we're no longer sinless. What God meant to be an eternal blessing is now capable of being an eternal curse if people were still immortal, and a lifelong curse even so. If you marry someone who is an abuser or who abandons you, and divorce is not possible, then you cannot find a new provider if you're a woman. You cannot find a new helper if you're a man. The good and blessed thing has been corrupted. That is the evil of divorce, that it became something that must be escaped from. And if there's a scenario in which it is good and right to have a divorce, then yes, it's good and right to regulate rather than abolish it. That same thing can't be said of abortion. It's never right or acceptable to murder your unborn child.